Imola, the opening round of the European section of the 1982 World Championship and the San Marino Grand Prix, the first of two races in Italy in the World Championship, this one taking its name from the little principality of San Marino, not far down the autostrada from Imola, here where a superb circuit with lots of hills, lots of tight corners, very hard work on the brakes, very hard work on the gearbox, and a tremendous race in prospect, despite the fact that due to the current political situation in motor racing, it's a reduced field. No McLarens, no Brabhams, but very much there, the Renault turbos on the front row of the grid, and with his 11th pole position, René Arnoux, there he is, and you see the new World Championship points, which take into account the fact that we've had disqualifications from the Brazilian Grand Prix for Nelson Piquet and Keke Rosberg. Alain Prost, therefore, the new World Championship leader, there he is, and he is alongside his teammate Arnoux on the front row of the grid, to the delight of the crowd. There on the second row, the two Ferraris, that one is Villeneuve, Gilles Villeneuve, slightly faster than his teammate Didier Pironi in practice, and there also for Italy, although of course in a British car, a British Tyrrell, Michele Alboreto, behind him Bruno Giacomelli, alongside him rather, Bruno Giacomelli, and the first of the two Alfa Romeos, yet another Italian driver, and his Italian teammate Andrea de Cesaris, the man who was so astonishingly quick in practice at Long Beach. Derek Warwick in the turbocharged Tellman, qualifying at last, and that's very good news indeed for the British Tellman team. And there you see the whole grid: Arnoux and Prost in the Renaults, Villeneuve and Pironi in the Ferraris, Alboreto's Tyrrell, Giacomelli and de Cesaris in the Alfas, then it's Warwick in the Tellman, Jarier in the Azella, with Fabi in the other Tellman having his first Grand Prix alongside him, then Brian Henton in a Tyrrell this time, Winkelhock in an ATS, Paletti in an Azella, and Salazar in the other ATS. But here is the pole position man, René Arnoux, only 2 Grand Prix wins despite his 11 pole positions, as opposed to 4 Grand Prix wins for Prost. So Arnoux, starting from the front, so anxious to show that he is in fact joint number 1 in the Renault team. And now you see the grid going off on the warm-up lap. They're now going through the long, flat-out left-hander of Tamburello, normally coming through here in 5th gear at about 175, 180 miles an hour. Now this is the very fastest part of the circuit here, and there's a slight curve to the right. There are the cars on it now, before the very tight second gear left-hander of Tosa. So very hard on the brakes there, all the way down through the gearbox from 5th to 2nd, then a short straight up again into 5th gear as they go up the hill, breast this rise, and then immediately after this yet another sharp left-hander, although this is a faster one. They're in 4th gear here, and then another downhill plunge, hit the brakes very, very hard indeed, because there's an extremely tight corner coming up, and that is the chicane that was put in comparatively recently. There you see it, a very, very tight chicane, the Acqua Minerale chicane, and then accelerating hard once more from 2nd, 3rd, 4th up to 5th gear up this little hill before they get to the series of corners known as the Variante, and note the curbs on the outside, a lot of rubber and scrape marks on those curbs already from practice, because the curbs ever ready to catch out the unwary. And once again up into 5th gear, a short straight on, once again downhill before a double apex left-hander. Here is the first apex of it at Rivazza. They snatch 3rd gear from 2nd between the two apexes. You see the 2nd apex now as the camera moves round to the right. There it is. And now the sprint towards what used to be a flat-out blind past the start-finish straight, but that too has been slowed by a chicane, a sharp right, then left again, and then right again before they go onto the start-finish straight. 60 laps ahead. This is round 4 of the 1982 World Championship, the San Marino Grand Prix. 2 Renaults on the front row, turbocharged 1.5 litres. 2 of the latest turbocharged Ferraris on the second row. Tyrrell with an Italian driver, Alfa Romeo with an Italian driver on row 3, and a capacity Italian crowd despite the small field, very anxious to see Ferrari vanquish the yellow French Renaults on their home circuit. A lot of testing being going on for the Ferraris here with their new Harvey Postlethwaite chassis. There you see the lights. The light will go red, then it will go green, and the race will be underway. All eyes on the lights. The top two lights are red, and we wait for them to light. And that's Derek Warwick who's had trouble. That's a great shame. Derek Warwick in trouble already on the warm-up lap with the Tellman. That's very, very sad indeed, particularly because they've had so little race experience with the Tellman. There are the red lights. They'll go green any second. There they are, green. The whole field moves away. A good start by Giacomelli it is, whose Alfa is trying to squeeze between the two cars in front, but Arnoux is in the lead. It's Arnoux, it's Prost, it's Villeneuve, it's Didier Pironi, then it's the blue Tyrrell of Alboreto, then we've got the two Alfa Romeos, and Villeneuve pushing very hard on Prost. It's still Renault 1-2, but watch the Ferraris come up behind, and Villeneuve is looking at the inside. Still Alain Prost has second place. Villeneuve, Pironi, Alboreto, then the two Alfas, and already Arnoux is trying to consolidate this advantage on the first lap, but Villeneuve is through. Villeneuve is into second place. The delight of the crowd up there is absolutely palpable, as already they're jumping up and down on this first lap, as through Acqua Minerale goes the leading Renault of René Arnoux, and there is the new second man, and we've got the Ferrari of Didier Pironi past Prost as well. This is quite a surprise, because Prost, we thought, would do his best to hold second place, protect René Arnoux' lead, and try and keep the Ferraris behind, but it hasn't worked that way, and in fact Prost is now being pressured by Alboreto in the blue Tyrrell, but it's Ferraris second and third, it's Arnoux leading, it's Prost fourth, Alboreto fifth, Giacomelli sixth, De Cesaris 7th. This is still lap one as they go through the Variante, and the leader is already out of the picture. This is Villeneuve in second place, Pironi in third. There you see, stationary by the side of the road, poor Derek Warwick's car, as Arnoux comes up to complete the first of 60 laps. And that's an enormous lead already. Villeneuve in second place, Pironi in third place, and Prost in fourth seems to be able to do nothing about it as they start the second lap. They're going through the long left-hander at Tamburello, and the Ferraris already ahead of one of their two rivals, the two Renaults, which were expected to be very much the dominating force in this race. Villeneuve's car twitching under braking as he holds this second place, and Pironi shaking off the attentions now of Prost and trying to move up to join his teammate to consolidate Villeneuve's second place. Villeneuve over the brow, Pironi, and a puff of smoke there from that looked like one of the Tyrrells, and that is not Alboreto's Tyrrell, that is Brian Henton's Tyrrell, coming to a halt in the Acqua Minerale, and that's a great shame, because this was Brian Henton's first drive with Tyrrell after starting the season with Arrows, and Henton, the Derbyshire driver who's been around on the fringes of Formula One for so long, who's had 2 Formula 2 championships, and that's very bad luck indeed for Henton in the Tyrrell. Meanwhile, out in front, still Renault, Ferrari, Renault, and Alboreto dogging Prost. So Prost clearly not particularly happy on this. Is a very twisty circuit, of course, but it's got a long straight which should favour the turbocharged Renaults, and Prost is not able to stay with the Ferraris, and as they come through to complete that lap, Arnoux pulling away. That is Brian Henton's car being rolled away to the side of the road. So it looks as though Henton's race is run, Derek Warwick's race run almost before it even began, and that's both of the British runners out, and that's a great shame. But nevertheless, the Italians have got a wonderful battle with a French driver, then the two Italian Ferraris, albeit one driven by a French Canadian, the other by a Frenchman, then yet another Frenchman in fourth place. There is the Italian who is fifth, the now Candy sponsored Tyrrell of Michele Alboreto, and he is very close indeed to Prost. I don't think Prost is particularly happy in fourth place, and certainly his form nothing like as dominating as it was in practice. Prost using the curbs there briefly to try and stay in front of Alboreto, and Michele Alboreto, who, let's remember, had his first ever Grand Prix here at Imola a year ago. There's the yellow flag for Henton's car, which is still being manoeuvred out of the way, just out of the Acqua Minerale chicane. But Alboreto, 25 years old, from Milan, this is the anniversary only of his first Grand Prix. Still Pironi is third, still Villeneuve is second, and still René Arnoux, there he is, leads. Down the hill into the Ravazza, and we've got Giacomelli closing up. This is Bruno Giacomelli, there he is, and that's Teo Fabi following him ahead of Jarier. Teo Fabi, also Italian of course. This is Teo Fabi's first Grand Prix, and he is in the Turbo Tolman, the sole surviving Turbo Tolman because of Derek Warwick's problems. So despite the fact that the field is small, it's still very well bunched up, and now the two Ferraris perhaps thinking whether they can work together. Can Villeneuve and Pironi help themselves using the slipstream, using the tactics when they come up later in the race to lap the back markers to try and get onto terms with René Arnoux? Arnoux clearly at the moment the quickest. Away out of the Tosa, third gear, fourth gear, fifth gear just snatched as they go over this brow and then hit the brakes once again for the fourth gear left-hander that follows it. There it is, and Pironi using quite a lot of the curb as they come out. Long downhill plunge and into the very tight chicane. The cars doing their best to straighten it out. You can see the line of rubber on the road as they try to straighten this corner out, and that looks like De Cesaris. Indeed, 22, one of the two Marlboro Alphas. That's De Cesaris, who was so nearly the star of the Long Beach race. Started, of course, there from pole position. Not as quick as his teammate here, and De Cesaris already in trouble in the pits with one of the Alfa Romeos. His teammate just at the back of this queue that you see now, the red car just going into the final apex now of the chicane before the start-finish line. That is De Cesaris' teammate, Bruno Giacomelli, who always manages to put on a good show at an Italian race. He went very well at Monza last year, and he is determined to show well in front of the Italian crowd. Once more the two Ferraris, very, very close now, and I don't think Villeneuve is getting any closer to Arnoux. On the contrary, Arnoux pulling out the lead. Little puffs of smoke from the back of the Renault, but they're not slowing him down at all, and we have briefly an empty picture as Arnoux goes out of sight before Villeneuve and Pironi come into sight. Prost dropping back out of contention in fourth place. Alboreto still there, ever threatening, in fifth place, but this is the leader, René Arnoux of France, in the number 16 Renault. Two Ferraris just coming into sight there, and Arnoux's pit signals will be telling him that he's now built up quite a nice cushion. He's not going to get any help from his teammate Prost, but what he must do this early in the race is try to extend this lead, perhaps taking a leaf out of Niki Lauda's book. Lauda was saying at Long Beach the ideal situation is to have a 10-second lead 10 laps from the end, and whatever you do before there doesn't really matter. Well, Arnoux, with so much bad luck, so many mechanical failures behind him, and only 2 Grand Prix victories in a career that's taken in 52 Grand Prix, Arnoux very anxious to keep those angry red Ferraris well behind. That is the Tyrrell there of Alboreto closing ever closer onto Prost's yellow Renault, but I think Alboreto is going to have trouble passing Prost, because Prost very, very quick still in a straight line with the turbocharged Renault. Here are the turbo Ferraris. Once again up the hill out of Tosa. And that's Arnoux out of the picture again before the Ferraris come bounding over that brow at about 115 miles an hour at that point before they touch the brakes and turn into the left-hander and then down towards Acqua Minerale once again. And the Italian crowd, that's De Cesaris once again, is it not? Yes, once again De Cesaris back in the pits. Whatever his trouble is, we don't know. They've just put fresh tyres on the car, but that actually doesn't mean an awful lot, because these days, if a car's stationary in the pits for any sort of attention, the mechanics will, while that work is being done, change the tyres almost as a matter of course, because you're always going to go quicker on fresh tyres. This is René Arnoux once again, and the Ferraris perhaps even further behind as they come down that final short straight down to the Traguardo before the start-finish line. And have we got a change of position behind? I think I saw a new 4th place for Michele Alboreto there. So I think Prost has slid further and further back, and that will certainly please the Italian crowd, who are no lover of Renault, but are particularly lovers of Alboreto. He may drive a British car, but Michele Alboreto, only 25 years old, he's come up the hard way through the single-seater Formula, Formula 3, Formula 2, and there indeed is Prost in the pits, and you see they're changing the tyres anyway, but I'm sure that that isn't in fact the problem. Whatever Prost's problem is, yes, the engine cover comes off, he's still in the car, but it looks as though Prost's race is run. Now, does that mean that there's a weak point in the Renault somewhere? Certainly René Arnoux will not be pleased to learn from the pit signals that his teammate is no longer in 4th place. There is Alboreto, therefore, the new 4th man, with the needle-nosed Tyrrell carrying sponsorship for the first time for many races. Ken Tyrrell, the former timber merchant from Surrey, who has been such a loyal supporter of Formula 1 for so long, has had to run this team without any major sponsorship for a long time. But Italian washing machine company are now back with him. This is a company he brought into Formula 1 sponsorship in the first place. They've been with the Tolman team for a while. They're now back with him. And Ken Tyrrell must be very, very pleased that there's now a bit more money in the kitty, more money for development, for testing, and certainly Michele Alboreto, whom Ken Tyrrell regards as the best young hope that he's come across for a very long time. Michele Alboreto doing his best, and that's Bruno Giacomelli doing his best. Now Giacomelli, now in 5th place, is closing the gap onto Michele Alboreto. 2 Italians, one in an English car, one in an Italian car, and both of these, the only survivors from their team. Remember, Henton has already retired, Andrea De Cesaris has already retired, and that's the battle you see for 4th place. Alboreto and Giacomelli. Giacomelli with the very effective Alfa Romeo, the 12-cylinder Alfa Romeo, which went so very, very quickly in Long Beach, and very nearly won the race. In fact, started from pole position, and De Cesaris crashed while in 2nd place. Incidentally, De Cesaris' accident happened when he was looking in his mirrors because the engine had begun to smoke. Arnoux, Villeneuve and Pironi, there you see the gap, 3.3 seconds. Alboreto 10 seconds behind the leader, back in 4th place. And that's Teo Fabi and one of the ATSs. I think that was Winkelhock there in number 9, one of the 2 yellow ATSs from Germany in the race. And now we see that Villeneuve is putting the pressure on. Villeneuve a lot closer now to René Arnoux. And Villeneuve has shaken off the attentions of his teammate Didier Pironi, and he's now starting to put the pressure on. Very, very much closer indeed. Under braking as they come down for the Rivazza. Villeneuve isn't close enough to challenge the Renault yet, but he's certainly very, very much closer than he was. And the Ferrari looking very steady as it comes out of the 2nd Rivazza, down into the Traguardo, and Villeneuve getting closer all the time. Now, can it be that whatever it was that slowed Alain Prost and eventually sent him into the pits is now plaguing Renault number 16? Certainly there'll be a lot of very biased Italians cheering on Villeneuve. Villeneuve, a great hero in Italy, and a man who is very much a racer. He's won the hearts of the Italians because he is such a trier. He never ever gives up. We've seen him with only 3 wheels on his car, still trying to race. And Villeneuve very, very determined. Now there's the gap. In fact, it's very much less than that. That was the gap a lap and a half ago, 0.9 seconds, and it's very much less than that, as you can see. And now we can watch to see where it is that the Renault is quicker and where it is that the Ferrari is quicker. And I think you'll find that under braking, the Ferrari is getting very, very close indeed. In a straight line, and particularly out of corners, getting power down out of corners, the Renault seems to have the edge. out of the Variante, down the hill towards Rivazza. Hard on the brakes, second gear, there's the first apex, there's the second, and Pironi closing up also, and we are looking like a 3-car battle for the lead. Little puff of smoke there from the Ferrari, and you can hear the crowd as they see the cars come into sight, and Villeneuve closer all the time. Now watch, the Renault will pull away here a little bit. Yes, indeed, it does. That's where the Renault is quick. And now on the long straight, Villeneuve tries to get close enough behind the Renault to use the slipstream. This is the fastest part of the circuit through the Tamburello left-hander. 185 miles an hour here before they brake on that right turn and then swing across the road to take the left turn off Tosa. Up the hill once more. Pironi getting closer in third place. This is the 3-car battle for the lead. Arnoux' Renault, Villeneuve's Ferrari, and the distance 0.6 of a second, but that depends where you are on the circuit. It's less than that, certainly, at some points. And Pironi watching the proceedings from a very pretty-looking third place. Out of Aqua Minerale, up through the gearbox, up the hill, snatching 5th gear just as they go under that bridge. And then down through the gears once more for the Variante. And everybody using every inch of the road and a little bit of the curb. But you have to keep these cars clear of the curbs because the underside of the car, which is so important for the aerodynamics, doesn't like being scraped on the curb. And any top Formula One driver will tell you that these modern Formula One cars, with their very small suspension movement, repay neat driving. It doesn't pay to get them sideways or to get them out of shape. That's not the quickest way around a corner. Arnoux, Villeneuve, and once again Arnoux pulls away a little bit as they come out of Traguardo, and he's not quite close enough to get into the slipstream. I must say Arnoux driving superbly here because he really is under a lot of pressure. He's on his own, he's got a team of 2 cars working away behind him, and Villeneuve getting closer all the time. It only needs the slightest mistake for Arnoux to throw this all away, and so far he's driving like a man who knows exactly what he's doing, and he's going to keep in that groove and keep the Ferraris behind him. Down the hill once more, and Pironi perhaps slipping back a little bit. It's very difficult following another car because the aerodynamics at the front don't work so well. The aerodynamics at the front of Villeneuve's car will be disturbed by the turbulence behind the rear wing of the Renault, and following a car this close is very difficult. But indeed the sort of pressure that Arnoux is under is certainly a very difficult task also, and he's got to keep the door shut, he's got to drive defensively, and all the time snapping at his heels. Villeneuve very close now. And a little twitch from Villeneuve. The front of his car briefly got away from him then as they came out of the second Rivazza, and that lost him a little bit of time, but already he's right up to Arnoux again. The Italian crowd cheering on their hero, Villeneuve! And he is definitely closer this time. Now, he must now be getting close into that slipstream to be able to try to pull up alongside. If he's going to do it, that's the place. He's not quite close enough this lap. Arnoux, you can see his head moving as he looks in the mirrors. And down the hill now into Tosa. And once more, he's very, very close indeed. But Arnoux not putting a foot wrong. Less than 2/5 of a second, the gap. And Arnoux has to keep the door shut as they go over the brow. Villeneuve very, very close now. Villeneuve had a look first at one side, then at the other as they went up the hill out of Tosa. Now they go down towards Aqua Minerale, and Villeneuve hungry, snapping at the Renault's heels, looking for every inch and every split second. Out of Aqua Minerale, up the hill once more, both of them using the curb. And Villeneuve not so close at that point, but once again watch how he closes under braking. again, that little twitch from the Ferrari. The Ferrari not as steady through the last part of the Variante as is the Renault. The Renault seeming to handle very, very well indeed, but under braking is where the Ferrari closes. Through the Ravazza once more. And another little twitch from Villeneuve. Down now towards the final chicane. Again the roar of the crowd. And Villeneuve closes, twitches under braking, gets very close, and once again the Renault accelerates away. And Pironi still sitting comfortably behind. He's not going to interfere with this battle. He's going to let his Canadian teammate find a way past the Renault if he can. 185 miles an hour here, perhaps 190. Now the brakes go on, and very difficult to hit the brakes as the car is turning. And the gap, I would think, a lot less than 0.6 of a second, which is what we're being shown on the caption at this point. That presumably was the gap when they passed the start-finish line, and it's round here in the twists that Villeneuve is getting closer. But the Renault always seeming to be a little bit faster on the start-finish straight. And we've had a pit stop for Teo Fabi in the Tolman, but he's back in the race. He's still going. That's promoted Winkelhock in the ATS, but all eyes now on this three-car battle for the lead. On down the hill to Ravazza once more. And you can see the Ferrari flags waving in the crowd. But Arnoux still doesn't put a foot wrong, and again the car's bouncing over the bumps, and the Renault again looking just slightly more stable. Here is where Villeneuve gets so close, and here is where the Renault seems to pull away as the speeds go up. The traction of the Renault as it goes up through the gears from second gear up to fifth, and this 185 mile an hour straight pulling him away from the Ferraris. Yes, and Villeneuve having a little bit of a rest now, it seems. Pironi perhaps getting closer. And if Villeneuve can have a pause, let the gap go up to 3 or 4 lengths, and then come back again, that is a classic way. That's an Alan Jones tweak. There's Alboreto, but that's a classic way of shaking the man you're pursuing. You fall back a bit, let him relax, and then suddenly reappear from nowhere. Remember Alan Jones? That is, of course, the other Alfa Romeo. What a shame for Bruno Giacomelli. The car parked. I don't think he's crashed it. I think he's just parked it well off the road, and that is a great shame for Bruno Giacomelli. So that means both Alfa Romeos now out of the race, and even more does the Italian focus remain on these Ferraris. Alboreto still in 4th place in the Tyrrell, but this is the 3-car lead battle once more. That's going to promote Jean-Pierre Jarrier's Ozella to 5th place, and Winkelhock in the ATS will now be 6th. So that's good for the German. Very little Formula 1 experience for him, but it looks as though he could be in the points. But this is now the 2nd place battle, and surely Villeneuve is closer now. Can he stay behind that Renault as they cross the start-finish line once more? And he really is closer this time. Now, watch to see if he can use the slipstream through the left-hander at Tamburello. And if the Ferrari can stay close now, he can get a tow. But once again, the power of the Renault seems to pull him away. And it's just so near and yet so far. He can get up to him on the corner at Tossa, but not on the straight where it matters. The crowd cheering now. They're throwing their programmes. They're waving their flags. They want to see their man take the lead, and he does it! A superb manoeuvre by Villeneuve. That was absolutely copybook, and I think Didier Pironi's going to try and do the same thing as well. A little bit of a mistake from Arnoux, and it was all that Villeneuve did. They're waving, they're clapping, they're cheering, and here you see it again as they come over the brow. Villeneuve looks at the inside, he pulls out of the slipstream, he's close enough to get the tow, and he's all the way up the inside, and this is where he can use his later braking. He's got a tighter line, he's got a sharper corner to make, but the Ferrari has superb brakes, and he is through and clear. So a Ferrari leads the San Marino Grand Prix. There's a Ferrari in third place, and now René Arnoux is not in an enviable position, because not only must he try to fight back, he must try and attack Villeneuve and get his lead back, but also he has still got to drive defensively, he's still got to keep the door shut, because Pironi is right up there too, and if his teammate can do it, says Didier, so can I. So now, as the cars come up to complete their 27th lap, the race approaching half distance, and we've got a wonderful three-car battle for the lead. Two turbocharged cars, the Ferrari with a very much better chassis this year, designed by the British Dr. Harvey Postlethwaite, and the Renault with so much development behind it. Renault, who did all the initial development work for the turbocharged engine and know more about making a turbocharged car go well than anybody else. Didier Pironi is very close now. Pironi right in the Renault slipstream, and can Pironi do exactly what Villeneuve did? But no, it's the Renault that's fighting back. Arnoux is alongside, Arnoux is through. And Pironi's coming up the inside now. Can Pironi get through? Pironi has gone through into second place. For a moment they were three abreast. That's a sensational move. And Pironi is alongside, but Villeneuve now fights back. They're over the brow of the hill side by side, and Villeneuve's gone back into second place again. Well, that was a wonderful piece of Formula One motor racing at its best. We're going to see it again. And on sheer power, the Renault, the yellow and white Renault, comes out of Villeneuve's slipstream, is alongside as they come out of the Tamburello curve, and they're doing over 180 miles an hour here. And he is on the left-hand side of the road, and although the corner that follows is a right-hander, the sharp corner after it is a left-hander, and that's the place to be. And watch Pironi try to come through too. But Pironi, having briefly taken second place and almost got wheel-to-wheel with the leader, Pironi has now had to fall back tactfully behind his teammate Gilles Villeneuve. And so once again we have Renault the leader and Arnoux pulling away now, taking advantage of the fumbling that went on there briefly between the two Ferraris, but Pironi's coming back again. Pironi alongside once more. As they come into sight, Pironi is on the inside. He's come all the way tight down into Tosa. And how those cars touched, I just don't know. But Didier Pironi is second, and Gilles Villeneuve is back to third, and René Arnoux is moving away again into the lead. So it looks to me as though these Ferraris aren't driving particularly to team tactics. We're going to see it again. They're absolutely racing with one another. Pironi comes up the inside just as René Arnoux did on the lap before, and that means that he's on the wrong side for the right-hander but the correct side for the left-hander. And as they come wheel to wheel, watch Villeneuve's nose as he chops across. Very, very close indeed to Pironi's back wheel. So Villeneuve with the fastest lap so far in this scorching race, with several changes of position going on all the time. There is Villeneuve, the lap record holder for this race, but demoted to third place, and that will not please him at all. And they're all very close once again. A little twitch from the Renault, a puff of black smoke, Pironi over the curb, which shows how hard he's working. And Villeneuve still in third place. Down once more to the Rivazza. You can see the surface breaking up a little bit there. It's very, very bumpy there, and it's at a point where the cars are working very hard in second gear. A twitch there from Pironi once more as the Ferrari goes over the bumps. And so, as the race approaches half distance, still Arnoux, the leader, Pironi in second place, and Villeneuve is third. And Arnoux, this is his fastest place. The Renault, I would think clearly, is fastest in a straight line, but we're going to have Villeneuve fighting back once more. And Villeneuve comes at the same place, up the inside. He's going to do what Pironi did to him. Absolutely, it's a repeat, it's a mirror image, and Villeneuve doles out a dose of Pironi's medicine back to Pironi himself. Didier Pironi down to third place, Gilles Villeneuve up to second, and still this wonderful battle rages. And That has allowed briefly Arnoux to get ahead slightly, but I don't think he's going to be ahead for long. You see the action replay once again, and this manoeuvre always means you're on the wrong side of the road for that right-hand curve, but it means you're correctly placed where the braking really is hardest, and you nose into the tight left-hander of Tosa. And Arnoux in trouble! Arnoux' car smoking, Arnoux' car is on fire, and the Ferraris go by, and Arnoux is in real trouble. A lot of flames from the back of the car. He's still going. No, he's going to stop. And that is René Arnoux' race run. Lots of black, oily smoke, lots of flame from the turbocharger, and once more, the Renault's speed hasn't taken it through the full length of the race. Well, that's very sad indeed for the Renault team, because Prost, you'll remember, went out very early on after having never been up at the front. Now Arnoux, with his 11th pole position, with still only 2 race wins to his credit, once again the Renault has flattered to deceive. Arnoux is out, and the Ferraris are first and second, and that is really what this Imola crowd came to see. Their beloved red Ferraris in the lead. First Villeneuve, second Didier Pironi, and we haven't seen a Ferrari 1-2 for so long. I would think not till since the Jody Scheckter Gilles Villeneuve days anyway. And there you see the flags waving and the crowd going absolutely berserk, and now surely we're going to see some slight relaxation of the torrid battle that's gone on between these two. They're meant to be joint number ones, but Gilles Villeneuve, very much the senior man in the team, Gilles Villeneuve has done every... Oh, Villeneuve's gone off there! Villeneuve, a mistake. Villeneuve onto the grass, coming out of that part of the first part that was of Rivazza, and that's allowed Pironi to go ahead again. So Didier Pironi, the leader. I was about to say he's the new boy in the team. This is his first year with Ferrari. Didier Pironi, 30 years old, from Paris. Gilles Villeneuve. We're going to see again. That, in fact, was how it first happened. That is the Renault catching fire as Villeneuve goes ahead, and Pironi has a grandstand, sort of centrally heated view, one might say, of the demise of Arnoux' Renault. But here we now see once again these Ferrari drivers, both of them 30 years old, both of them French-speaking. Didier Pironi from Paris, Gilles Villeneuve, of course, from Montreal in Canada, although he lives in Monte Carlo. And the gap, less than 4/5 of a second. Now, what is Villeneuve going to do about this? Because one would expect the cars pretty much to drive to team tactics. Villeneuve very definitely made a mistake. He made an error, and Pironi was able to drive past while the Villeneuve car had its wheels on the grass briefly there, and that means that Villeneuve is demoted for the best or the most respectable reasons as far as Pironi is concerned to second place. But I have a feeling that Didier Pironi is going to have a bit more pressure from Gilles Villeneuve than that. I have a feeling that Gilles Villeneuve isn't going to be very satisfied with second place. They're coming up now to lap Jean-Pierre Jariet's Zella as they come into the Traguardo once more, the 4 apexes there of the complex chicane that takes them back onto the start-finish straight and onto the long, fast haul through the Tamburello left-hander. Jariet still in front of them. Didier Pironi, the leader. Gilles Villeneuve in second place, and Pironi is safely by. Villeneuve comes through as well. We've still got Alboreto in third place in the Tyrrell. Jariet, whom they've just lapped, is in fourth place, so only 3 cars on the leader's lap, 2 of them Ferraris, the third Alboreto's Tyrrell. Salazar and Winkelhock are 5th and 6th in the 2 ATSs. And Villeneuve's in front. Now, this is in fact a replay. I was confused momentarily there. That is the mistake that we were talking about. That was Villeneuve getting his wheel on the grass, but still very much in front, Didier Pironi, and Villeneuve, I don't think, very happy about that at all. Jariet safely lapped now, and the only other car still running, there are 7 cars still in the race. Teo Fabi is the other runner, still going in the Turbo Tollman, although he has had a pit stop, he's away behind. And these two Ferraris very, very close indeed as they come down to Rivazza. And Villeneuve can't be any closer than that without clambering over the top of Pironi's gearbox. And the crowd are absolutely loving every minute of it. I think it's becoming clear that team tactics may well have to take a back seat here, because the pace that the race is being run makes it absolutely clear that Pironi is working very hard to keep this lead, and Villeneuve is working very hard to get it back. Tamburello once more, and Villeneuve's going to do it. Villeneuve pulls alongside as they come down, and Villeneuve on the inside once more, and Pironi's not going to let him. Pironi shuts the door, moves across, and Villeneuve has to give best. Villeneuve trying again on the inside as they go up over the hill. Villeneuve again up the inside, and this time a very angry Villeneuve has done it. Villeneuve goes back into the lead, and he was alongside Pironi and going down into the very end, the Tosa then, and that was the place that you would expect Pironi to let him through, and Pironi just shut the door on him and wasn't having any. And Villeneuve just kept the pressure up and was able to do it a few hundred yards later. So Gilles Villeneuve now back in front. And Pironi still second. Alboreto, I'll remind you once again, still third in the Tyrrell. The Italian driver still going extremely strongly, but not able in any way to stay in contention with these two very, very fast Ferrari drivers. And Villeneuve using every inch of the road still as he comes up to complete the lap. And Villeneuve very much the darling of the crowd. And I think the grandstand, from looking at the way they're behaving, are glad to see the French-Canadian in front of the Frenchman once more. Didier Pironi, incidentally, has Italian blood in him. He has, I think, an Italian grandfather, hence his rather Italian-sounding name. He's, in fact, a fluent Italian speaker, which obviously helps in the Ferrari team. Gilles Villeneuve, having so much experience of Ferrari, he's been with Ferrari since the end of 1977, and in fact, of his 66 Grand Prix before today, he's only done one of them for another team. He did his very first Grand Prix for McLaren. McLaren let him go to Ferrari, and ever since have been kicking themselves, I think. And Villeneuve has shown himself, particularly with two superb victories last year, with the difficult 1981 Turbo Ferrari. Villeneuve has shown himself to be one of the hardest drivers in the Grand Prix circus, a man who never ever stops racing. And he certainly is not stopping racing now, but nor indeed is Didier Pironi. Pironi, who joined the Ferrari team this year. And there you see the position, and there you see the pit signal. Now that pit signal is saying, Didi, slow. They're going to hang out a pit signal telling Didier Pironi to ease off the pressure. He's now in second place. The battle has been keeping the speed up. It means that the two Ferraris, which, let's face it, are comfortably ahead of this man Alboreto, whom we're looking at now, they have no reason to keep the speed of this race so hard. And with tyres, with fuel consumption, and Pironi's done it again. Pironi has gone ahead. Now that means that Pironi has taken absolutely no notice whatever of that pit signal, which we saw the pit getting ready for him just a minute ago. Didier Pironi back in front. This is lap 53 now, and he's back in front. Now what is Gilles Villeneuve going to do about this? Pironi pulling away a little bit. Perhaps Villeneuve has a problem. Perhaps Villeneuve faltered somewhere. We didn't see the beginning of that manoeuvre, but for whatever reason, Didier Pironi back in front and caring not one jot apparently about the pit signals, keeping the pressure on, going ahead of Villeneuve, and Villeneuve now demoted once more to second place. And I think we can probably forget about team tactics. I think the drivers want to forget about pit signals. They want to have a motor race. And how splendid that despite the small field, the Italian crowd certainly must feel very, very happy with what they're watching. Pironi, a twitch there from Villeneuve. And Villeneuve not quite close enough on this occasion as they come through the Traguardo once more, out through the final apex. And there, Gilles slow, Didi slow. They are both having pit signals telling them to slow up. They're coming up now to lap Teo Fabi, that is, I think, down there in the Tolman. 5 laps now left to go, and both of them driving absolutely as hard as ever. They've both had slow pit signals. Pironi, in the lead, would probably be quite happy to slow, but I don't think Gilles Villeneuve's going to let him get away with it. Villeneuve tucked in behind. 5 laps left to go, and Villeneuve's trying on the outside. But he doesn't do it this time. He tucks in behind. Notice Pironi taking a tight line as they go into the Tossa now. And certainly Pironi wasn't going to let Villeneuve get alongside. They're going to lap one of the ATSs as they go over the brow of the hill, and they're both safely by. And Villeneuve has managed to get closer again. The lapping of the ATS probably helped a little bit. Into Acqua Minerale, the tight chicane. Both of them neat now, keeping off the curbs. Oh, but not so neat there for Villeneuve. Another little twitch. The car almost getting away from him and then snapping back into line as he gets the opposite lock on. And again, Villeneuve looking very, very twitchy indeed. Now, it may be that Villeneuve's tyres are in a worse state than Pironi's. It was Villeneuve who had to work so very hard to get ahead of Arnoux, and it may be that his tyres are more marginal. These Ferraris, of course, a lot heavier than the non-turbocharged cars, and yet another moment for Villeneuve. Villeneuve is all over the place at the moment, trying very, very hard, but his car looking extremely difficult to drive. Villeneuve twitching from curb to curb. A puff of dust just a second ago you saw as he got the Ferrari well over the grass with one of the wheels. You're going to see it again here. The car sideways, it snaps back into line, and he uses some of the grass as the car bounces off the curb, and all of that is allowing Pironi to stay in front, but still Villeneuve fights back. I think Villeneuve is angry. I think Villeneuve reckons that he should be leading this race, he should be winning this race. It's his teammate in front of him, and he doesn't want to give best. In these closing laps of the San Marino Grand Prix, Villeneuve is tucked up inside as they go up the hill once more, over the brow of the hill, and Villeneuve is close once more. That's where Villeneuve took the lead from Arnoux earlier on, the first of the Variante section, but Pironi stays in front this time, into Acqua Minerale. And the crowd not waving their programmes now, but watching in open-mouthed amazement at this battle. Pironi still the leader. Villeneuve still in second place, and as far as everybody might be concerned, there's nobody else to watch. Still Pironi is there. On down the hill. Villeneuve closes up a little bit under braking, but not enough. This is the second Ravazza. On now towards the Traguardo. That's the dust they're running over that Villeneuve kicked up last time. He didn't do it this time, and Villeneuve is very, very close. This time it's Pironi who has a little bit of a moment, and that's let Villeneuve get very, very close indeed. Will Villeneuve make another attempt? Bouncing over the bumps there, through the left-hander at Tamburello. 185 miles an hour here, perhaps 190 with a good toe, and that's what Villeneuve's got, a good toe. Out of the slipstream, Villeneuve coming down the inside, and Pironi is not having it. Pironi just moves across on Villeneuve. He says, this is my race, I'm going to lead it. And once again, Villeneuve angrily has to tuck in behind. The two Ferrari teammates, both racing for all they're worth. They've ignored pit signals which told them both to go slowly. And of course, if these two cars touch and take each other off, a great Ferrari 1-2 will be ruined. And I shouldn't think that team manager Mauro Forgieri can bear to look from the pit. On up the hill once more. Villeneuve dogging every wheel track of Pironi. Waiting for the slightest mistake, and Pironi's not going to give him the opportunity. Coming down the hill now towards Ravazza. Once again, Villeneuve very, very close under braking. Has a little look at the inside, but that isn't a place where you can go by. This time they stay off the curbs, much, much tidier this time. into Triguardo. So now 2 laps are left. And if Villeneuve's going to get in front, he's going to have to do it now. He's going to have to start laying plans to get back in front of this race and stay there. He's tucked very close into Pironi now. Surely now he's going to make his move. Villeneuve behind Pironi. This is the penultimate lap. There he goes. He's alongside. And all the way side by side as they come down into Tosa. And this time Villeneuve does it. Well, I think that's what we eventually expected. We expected, and you see the crowd waving. The crowd are cheering, very much the crowd on Villeneuve's side. They don't really mind which Ferrari wins, but given the choice, and they've got that luxury today perhaps, they've got 2 Ferraris leading, I think they would prefer to see the little French Canadian, who's been so loyal to Ferrari since 1977, they would prefer to see him lead. So on the penultimate lap, Villeneuve leads once more, Didier Pironi back into second place, we've still got Michele Alboreto third, we've still got Jean-Pierre Jarier fourth, and Didier Pironi isn't giving up. Didier Pironi is still very, very close indeed to the new leader Gilles Villeneuve as they go for the penultimate time down the hill towards Rivazza. And no attempt there. That is not a place, particularly with the bumps, that you can overtake, but you can see how hard Villeneuve's trying because he was using a little bit of the edge of the road there, safely out of Rivazza, down towards Triguardo for the final time. Gilles Villeneuve the leader. This is the last lap. It's Didier Pironi in second place. And surely now, as the Ferrari flags wave, Pironi must accept that he has had to give best to the little French Canadian. He's still close enough for a tow, but Didier Pironi tucked in behind Gilles Villeneuve on this, the last lap of the San Marino Grand Prix. And Pironi is Pironi's going to try the other side. Pironi comes down the inside and moves across. And Didier Pironi has gone ahead. An extraordinary move there. Villeneuve wasn't going to take the risk. He kept over to the left of the road. So Pironi said, OK, chum, I'm going up the right. And despite almost running out of road as they came down under braking for Tosa, Didier Pironi, amazingly, has gone in front. So Pironi leads. This is the last lap. Now, Acqua Minerale for the last time. Villeneuve, fuming, no doubt, must be thinking, where can I, a sideways moment there for Villeneuve, where can I find a space to overtake in the remaining half lap that's left to me? This is this is the Variante section. And he's, I think, going to be in trouble because there's only Rivazza and Triguardo left. Didier Pironi leads, Gilles Villeneuve is second, and Villeneuve bouncing across the curb there. These 2 drivers have driven their hearts out, despite the fact that they're both in the same team. Pironi on the grass that time. Now Villeneuve has a look, but there's nowhere to go. Villeneuve just had a little look to see whether there was something he could do there because Pironi made the smallest mistake, and they're coming up to the finish line now. And Villeneuve is behind. Villeneuve has lost the race. Didier Pironi has won it. The winner, therefore, in an extraordinary battle between 2 teammates, Didier Pironi, right hand held aloft in a victory salute, the marshals waving their flags, delighted at the wonderful sight of motor race that we've seen. And that's interesting because Pironi has taken his hat off, he's taken his crash helmet off already, and that is an indication, no doubt, of just how hard they've been driving. It's not a terribly hot day here at Imola, but it's been a very, very hot race indeed. Pironi the winner by 0.36 of a second, 36 hundredths of a second. Pironi the winner, Villeneuve second also for Ferrari, Alboreto third in the Tyrrell, Jarier is fourth in the Azella, and Eliseo Salazar, the Chilean driver, fifth, albeit 3 laps behind, and Manfred Winkelhock 7 laps behind, finishing sixth. Teo Fabi is 7th and the only other finisher in the Turbo Tolman. And there is the man who's given us all that entertainment, Didier Pironi in the Ferrari number 28. His 2nd ever Grand Prix win, his 1st Grand Prix win for Ferrari. Claps and cheers. Gilles Villeneuve in number 27, demoted to 2nd place and still with his crash helmet on as they go in to the paddock, and there you see the championship points. Prost still the leader despite no finish today. Lauda, who of course wasn't racing today, is still second. Alboreto and Pironi, the new joint third men. Alboreto third here today, Pironi the winner, and they now have 10 points each. Rosberg and Watson still fifth. Villeneuve is down in seventh place, and the winners on the Jeep. And there's no sign of Villeneuve on the victory Jeep as it goes round. Pironi in the red overalls, Michele Alboreto with the dark hair and the green overalls, and Gilles Villeneuve has opted not to go round on the Jeep at the end of the race. And I think he's probably gone back to the Ferrari pit for some stern words with teammate Mauro Forgieri. But what we've seen is a wonderful measure race between two top drivers deciding to keep racing all the way to the end. And as the crowd walk away from the San Marino Grand Prix, they must be indeed very happy to have seen a wonderful race put on by their favourite team, the prancing horse of Ferrari.